So attend, breathe in, feel it, befriend, offer space, say yes, some kindness. So an example that I'd like to share with you is of one woman I worked with some years back. She had gone through a series of really painful relationships, and they all ended, and they all she felt were failures that reflected on her undesirability, her lack of worth. Then she had a 10-year hiatus, like from 32 to 42 or something like that. And so it was a long time, and then she began dating. And as you can imagine, in this new round, she was terrified of what was going to go wrong. I mean, she was so set, so primed with fear and fight, flight. And her main way of fight, flight was this generating all the stories. Like she'd tell herself, I really need to be like this because that's what's going to show that, she had all these ways she wanted to configure herself to be likable. And her fear was he'd see her fear. That was her fear. So when we worked together, and I asked her what was going on, she described the fears. I'm going to blow it. He'll see how afraid I am. He's just being patient right now, but who likes insecure people? This is stuff that I'm sure many of you can relate to. So this was the mental fear body, okay? And in her physical body, she'd say, so the first step was, okay, just say to the thoughts, thank you very much, but not now, and come into the body. That's the first step, just attending, contact, what's here. In her body, as she named it, it was clutching and tightness and pounding. So she'd name it and then say yes. Okay, let's just say, agree to let it be there. Agree to let it be there. And then she'd go off into thoughts again as soon as she was settled into it. And the thoughts she was believing, these are real. This is really what's going to happen. I said, no, wait. You don't have to believe them. Thank you very much. Come back. So that was step one. Recognizing how she left. Thank you very much. Come back. Feel and name and agree to what's here. As she got a little bit of the knack of being with the sensations, and it takes something to stay with unpleasant sensations, then she began to very intentionally become more gentle. And that's what I mean by befriending. In some way there's a sense, just as the gesture of touching your hand on your heart, I should use my right hand, that just like this gesture, in some way she was communicating to the place of fear, it's okay, you can be there. I've done many, many sessions with people where if they can get to the point of sensing, well, what does the fear most want? Often the fear just wants us to accept that it's there. It's a part of us that just needs to be accepted. So in some way she was saying, okay, you can be here. That's what I mean by befriend. The intention to be kind. And the more she became gentle, and the more she just let it be there, the more she discovered what we call space, a kind of tender space. And as she described it, I get it, that fearful, insecure person is not who I am. Doesn't mean I am this secure, confident, together person. It just means I get that that's been playing out for years and years. It's not my identity. She had more space, more freedom. And in this relationship, as it worked out, because they both were practicing meditation and they put a value on honesty, they began to name out loud what they were experiencing, which truly is, I think of it as Vipassana out loud, or we now call it interpersonal Vipassana, or IVIP. That's our latest phrase. But it's where we start naming out loud and holding a space for each other in what we're feeling. It's a very powerful practice with another person. You just name what's true, you name it, hold it, name it, hold it. If what you're naming brings up conflict, then you need to bring in some other skills. But if you're just holding a space for each other, in the naming what's here, it becomes less personal. It's not my fear, it's the fear. And they're both able to find they both were insecure, which of course helps it out too, because we all are. I mean, when we're with each other, if we're really honest, much of the time, there's a fear there. We're afraid of each other some. And that's okay. I mean, there's also love and appreciation and fun, but there's some fear, and to the extent that there's fear, and it's not acknowledged and processed, it creates a separation. It stops us from being able to sense the springtime of who we are together, that aliveness, that spontaneity. This is the gift of opening to the fear body. The fear body, if we're fighting with it or avoiding it or acting out of it, keeps us from that tenderness. It keeps us from knowing our belonging. Its very premise is separation. When we bring presence to it, we begin to rest in and inhabit that presence and discover that set of thoughts, those physical sensations, that does not define who we are. We sense this very deep belonging to the space and the awareness and the tenderness that's attending and befriending.